For some time now, the United States has accused the Chinese tech giant Huawei of spying on behalf of the communist government in Beijing, a claim the company itself denies. Today, Washington went further, accusing Huawei of supporting human rights abuses committed by the Chinese state. It comes a day after the UK, following pressure from the US, banned Huawei from playing any part in the rollout of 5G mobile networks in Britain. China has warned London of economic consequences. Meanwhile, the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, says Washington will punish Huawei, and he defended the decision taken in Britain.
The UK joins the United States and now many other democracies in becoming clean countries, nations free of untrusted 5G vendors. The United States has a Huawei announcement of our own today. The State Department will impose visa restrictions on certain employees of Chinese technology companies like Huawei that provide material support to regimes engaging in human rights violations and abuses globally.
Mike Pompeo, well, Huawei, the world's biggest maker of telecoms equipment, counters that the US wants to frustrate its growth. Our Washington correspondent Gary O'Donoghue joins us now. Gary, are these the strongest claims made against Huawei by the US so far?
The language is certainly very strong. It talks about effectively Huawei being involved in human rights abuses because of the aid it gives to the Chinese state in places like Xinjiang and other areas of the country, repression of political dissidents, free speech, and the camps, of course. So, yeah, these are pretty strong words, but it's part of a wider pattern, if you like, of severely deteriorating relations between the US and China.
Well, indeed. I mean, in China, the US ambassador has been summoned to the country's foreign ministry. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is directly in response to an executive order that the president signed yesterday, sanctioning China effectively because of the new security law in Hong Kong, removing trading status from Hong Kong. Effectively, the US saying, look, if you're going to treat Hong Kong as no differently to anywhere else in China, then that's how we're going to treat you. So the Chinese are very cross about that, and also don't forget the two countries are at loggerheads over navigation rights in the South China Sea, where China has certain territorial claims, and the Americans are robustly refusing to acknowledge those, and indeed sailing their ships through those waters in a demonstration of strength.
So it is a worsening row, as you say. I mean, what do you think China can do to retaliate?
Well, it will do what it does. It'll threaten, it'll call ambassadors in, it could impose sanctions. You remember when Australia called for an investigation into the coronavirus outbreak. China has retaliated in trade terms against Australia. So you may see some of that. The thing to bear in mind, though, of course, is that China exports an awful lot more to the US than vice versa. So the Americans often calculate that China has more to lose in economic terms if there's a war that spills over into all areas of relations, including trade.
Thanks, Gary. Gary O'Donoghue there in the US. Well, here in Britain, the Chinese ambassador Liu Jiaming has said the UK's decision on 5G has undermined trust between the two countries. He said Beijing, as well as the technology firm Huawei, had been let down.
You know, when you see this company, good company who have been here for 20 years, created 28,000 jobs and pay a tax and contribute greatly to the telecom industry of this country and to the local community, that you simply dump this country, you know, it's very disheartening. The way you treat Huawei will be followed very closely by other Chinese businesses.
Over the past 20 years, Chinese companies have invested more than £40 billion in the UK, investment that could now be in jeopardy. 5 years ago, the British Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, promised the Chinese President Xi Jinping a golden era between the two countries. Now, China has accused the UK of being America's dupe. Our China media analyst, Kerry Allen, says the US is being blamed.
Well, today people in China are just seeing footage from the foreign ministry very much putting the blame on the US, There's not much mention of the UK's decision. It's very much been that the US are to blame for this. Lots of criticism of Donald Trump in particular, and footage handpicked showing him saying that Huawei is an example of untrustworthy Chinese technology, and saying in a press conference yesterday that we persuaded many countries, I did this myself for the most part, not to use Huawei. So it almost looks to Chinese people like Donald Trump has told the UK not to use Huawei, and the UK has responded.
And what about social media? Are they also pinning the blame for this decision by the UK on President Trump?
Very much so, yes, but people just don't really understand the logic behind moving Huawei technologies out of the UK. They see it as beneficial for the rest of the world. I mean, Huawei is a big success story in China. One of the emphases that's been placed by the foreign ministry in China is that more than 100 countries have actually embraced Huawei technologies, and it's going to facilitate their development. So they can't understand why the UK is doing this, and they see it as a bad decision for the UK, and one that could potentially be very difficult for the UK in the future in its digital development.
And is anyone talking about what this means for China's place in the world?
Not really, but long term there has been this line coming out of China anyway, that China is a growing competitor in the world's economy, and that the US may soon not be number one, but number two. And they're saying that Huawei is just one company of many Chinese companies that the US is trying to place restrictions on and try to play down, to criticize. So they're saying that people should actually get out of this mentality that China is the bad guy, and that it could actually help countries all over the world develop.
China media analyst